Hey there, beautiful teachers, and a very warm welcome to this Vibrant Music Teacher Chat, where today we're going to be talking about what I did for my online piano recital over the weekend, what worked well, what didn't, what I might do differently next time, so that you can learn from it and we can all move forward together and think about how recitals are going to work in the future. Let's get started. So if you're joining me now in the chat, please do say hello. I'd love to see who's joining us today as we dive into the world of recitals. Have you had one? Are you thinking about it? Did you just skip it? No worries if so. You will see behind me that I am surrounded by colour. So I left all of this up for you guys, especially for you guys, to give you a bit of insight into my recital. So let me know what you want to know about it. I'm going to run through some of the things I learned, some of how everything went, how I did everything, as well as, lessons learned for next time and what we could do even better. Janelle, I know you just completed your recital as well, so you can add your learnings to mine as we work through. The first thing I wanted to do, The first thing I wanted to do is to talk you through exactly what I did, right? Because online recitals can mean a lot of different things, and I've seen several different examples from fellow teachers over the last few weeks as we've converted things to online and made it make sense for us. I made some particular decisions, and I detailed this in a previous session, but I wanted to quickly run through exactly what way I ran my recital and why I chose to do it that way before we dive into the looking back and the breakdown of how it all worked. So for me, I decided that I was going to do it on YouTube Live. And this is the reason that I almost didn't record this video today. I almost went with a different topic, guys, to be honest with you. And that's because there's a bit of controversy is maybe too strong a word, but there's a bit of debate around the whole made for kids element in running a recital on YouTube, and Janelle is very familiar with this, who's in the chat right now. So I'm not looking to get into this debate. You can have yours, you can read it yourself, you can decide what you want to do. But I decided to do mine on YouTube Live, like we're doing right now, and I decided that it was not made for kids. And I have read the YouTube documentation on this, and I don't think it qualifies. Now, the way it is worded says you have to consider multiple factors and yada yada yada, okay? Let's not get into it. This is not the place for debating YouTube policies and silliness, okay? We'll just leave it at I decided to do it on YouTube Live and it all went fine, and I believe I was within my rights to do so. If you disagree with me, go with another system for yours, and that is absolutely your call. Now, the way I did it was through Ecamm Live. That's what I'm using right now, Ecamm Live. And I broadcast that to YouTube as an unlisted video, not made for kids because I believe it was made for the parents, and I invited the parents to come and watch. And it worked really, really well. It was a bit nerve-wracking in the lead up to it because of the whole made for kids issue. I was worried that even though I do this 3 times a week anyway, that somehow it wouldn't work, but it absolutely did. You could do the exact same thing though within Zoom. So if that made for kids thing is a concern for you, just do the same thing but in Zoom. If you like the idea of my recital but the YouTube thing is a concern, right? You can use Ecamm into Zoom. So you can use this camera setup that I've got going on right now and all the different scenes and the stuff I'm about to show you, and just use that as your virtual camera in Zoom. That's what I do for all my lessons, and it works pretty much the same, and it's great. Thing you won't be able to do, the only thing, is bring comments up on screen, like this one from Carrie right here. Thank you so much, Carrie. So the breakdown. Now that we've established how I did it, the basics of how I did it, how did it go? It went great! it was really good. And I say that with such a surprised voice, and probably people are going to chime in the chat saying, oh, of course it went great for you, you do this all the time. But I don't do this all the time. I don't run online recitals. I would still probably as nervous as any of you that things wouldn't go as I'd expected, or the technology wouldn't work, even though I do YouTube live videos with you guys 3 times a week. It's still a different situation, and I had some different plans, so I'm really proud of how it went. Really proud of all the kids for their videos and their performances, and the parents are chuffed. And that's what's really important to me, because recitals, yeah, they are for the kids, and the kids learn a lot from them, but especially in this instance, the final result was for the parents, to give them an opportunity to gloat and to say to their kids, oh my gosh, you're awesome, like they get to say to them about so many things all the time, and hardly ever about piano, because there just aren't that many opportunities to jump up and down in piano playing, right? So the recital is that for us, and it definitely provided that, and I'm really, really proud of being able to provide that opportunity for parents and for students. So the way that I did it was using Ecamm Live, and I did a few fun features, and I forgot to shout her out in the actual recital. This is actually one of my tiny regrets, is that I didn't give credit to one of my wonderful teachers. So let me do that right here, because one of these ideas was totally hers, and it worked so well. So I had different themes and different groups of videos together. And also in the teacher in my studio, she suggested doing like spot the pattern, and it just worked so well. So I had 3 different themes in the end, based on this brainstorm session that I had with the 2 teachers who work with me. So I had groups of videos. The reason I did that, by the way, is because I didn't want to have to speak in between each and every video. Like me saying, oh, this is such and such, she's playing such and such, and then it's 30 seconds of her performance, and then the next one. That's absolutely fine, and definitely that would be the way I would have gone if I had fewer students. I had 37 videos in my recital. 37 student performances, okay? That's not all our students, but that's still a lot of students. And so I didn't want it to be me talking the whole time, which it would have been if I had introduced every one of those 37 students. Yeah, Carrie just said 37. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I actually didn't even notice that number until one of my adult students was asking me about it. You know, we were just chit-chatting at the start of last week's lesson, and she was asking me about how it was going, the planning, and she was asking me how many, and I said, oh, I don't know, and I quickly looked at my Google Sheet and I said 37. She said, let's say Jesus, okay, because I try not to, but yeah, Jesus. So I didn't want to introduce each and every performer as I went through. I wanted to group them in sets. So I edited together so that they would flow in a set. Now I could have actually done this in scenes in Ecamm Live, and that's what I originally considered, but I decided to actually edit them together so that they just flowed naturally, and so that I could put the little titles on them that way. Mostly because that was going to be faster with what I wanted to do in the end. If it would have been faster to do it in Ecamm Live and had the little, you know, these type of things as the titles, I could have done it that way. Would have been fine. But I decided to edit them together because we came up with fun groups to put them in. So let me show you what I did. Where do I have those? Oh yeah, so I have a few things to show you. So this is how we ran the whole thing. We started out with me saying hello to everyone and thank you so much for coming, just to give it a few minutes to warm up as well. And during that I did have feedback from a YouTube video that one of my teachers accidentally left on, but we continued nonetheless, and I got over my technical hitch. I just wanted to mention that here. It didn't matter. I didn't care. I didn't get angry at the teacher, by the way, for leaving it on. That's not why I mention it. I mention it because Laurie and I were talking about this on a stream last week. She said, oh, I was so impressed by how you don't get flapped by the tech stuff. And I said to her, look, you just laugh it off. So that's exactly what I did there. Everything doesn't run perfectly when you're running a live show. It just doesn't. Stuff is going to happen. I won't be able to find something in a second here, and then I'll look for it and I'll talk my way through it and I'll laugh at it. Because there's nothing else you can do. And because people are human, so they appreciate you being human. So, after that little intro with the little glitch in it, I brought on my two other teachers. So this is what we looked like all together. Through Ecamm Live, you can have Skype guests come in. So they were in Skype, and I brought them in side by side with me just a couple of times, just at the start and the end. And again, while I was debating this, I debated bringing them on with me in between so we could all cheer together, and I decided it was just too much fuss. And that really the point of having them on the call was the next thing I'm going to show you, and it was just for them to check in and for their students to see that they were here too, they were watching, they were cheering them on, right? So we had the three of us on screen just to say hello, and yay, we're so excited. And at that stage, I introduced our collaborative composition project that a lot of the parents wouldn't have known about. So this is where we were passing pieces along between students. So each piece was jointly composed by like 3 to 6 students, and we're producing a book of those, and that's going to be ready hopefully at the end of this week, and I'm sending it out. But that's a topic for a whole other video. What we did on the concert was we played some of those pieces. So I decided for our teacher performances last year at our in-person concert, it was the first time I had multiple teachers working with me. And so we did a trio, the three of us together, and that was a really fun way to kick off the concert. And that's what we would have done in person this year. But that obviously made no sense through an online concert, so that's not what we're going to do. So I decided that, okay, our performances will be of these collaborative compositions so that we can showcase them and talk people through what happened, and just so that we get some piano time and we're playing something live to show that, we're still able to play and that we're in this too, So that was the only really live playing. All the other performances, the student performances, were recorded videos. But we played, this is my slot, so I played 5. We had to do 13, so I did 5, they each did 4. So the way I ran that was I had Ken go first, one of my teachers, then I went, and then Alsoon, so that I could switch between sitting here at my desk and sitting at the keyboard without a lot of kerfuffle, right? So I did that while they were playing and switched back again while the other one was playing. So that worked really, really well. And then, by the way, guys, let me know if you have questions or if I'm making sense as I work through. And if you've already held your recital or if you're planning one, and this is useful for you, hit the like button, let me know. But yeah, love to hear your questions as I work through here so that I know that it's all making sense. So that was our sort of teacher spot at the start. And then after that, we went into the student compositions and we did these in various themes. So I had 3 themes. That is hard to say. 3 themes. The first spot, the first group of student performances was Who Wrote That? Because I had a few, not tons, 6 pieces I picked out that people might know the composer. And so I had them guess. Let me backtrack a second. The whole point of these themes was to get people to chat. Because I knew, and I know from doing streams like this, that one of the hardest things to do is to get people to talk when there's not a real reason to, if they don't have something specific to say. And so I knew that if I just left it at, just cheer the students on, that as we went through, it would deteriorate. basically, that the last students would get less going on in the chat. So I didn't want it to be just compliments for the students. I wanted to give them something else to do that wasn't distracting and was definitely focused on what they were watching, but would keep them involved and keep them talking. So that's why I did the themes. And my first theme was Who Wrote That? So we had Another One Bites the Dust and Bohemian Rhapsody, written by different people. People got those. Loads of people knew that. That was the easiest one to answer, was which was Freddie Mercury and which was Brian May. I was surprised about that, but I guess I shouldn't have been. And then the only one nobody got was a Carl Czerny piece. I mostly threw that in there because it was Piano Safari Book 2, and a lot of students are in that book, so I thought maybe a student will remember who the composer is, but I threw that one in there. Then we had Ode to Joy, Beethoven, obviously, etc. Right? So that was our first theme. Kurt, what software did I use to edit the videos? So I'm an Adobe person, Kurt, as you may be aware, with all the InDesign and Illustrator that I use for creating games for VMT. And so I have the Adobe suite, and I used to use Adobe Premiere for videos, and I sometimes use that when I have to now, although most of my video editing is actually done by an editor, the wonderful Christian. So for most of my videos that I edit myself, they're quite simple jobs. And so I now use Adobe Premiere Rush, which is like a pared down, more social media focused version of Adobe Premiere. And it works great and it loads faster because it's not as robust and doesn't require as much of that processing power that's specific to video editors. We won't get into all of that, but yeah, that's the answer to the question. Adobe Premiere Rush. It has simple title slides like that already set up, like the one you just saw there, right? So that's animated, by the way, and it comes in and out, and they have those already laid out, and you can change the colors and stuff. It's nice and handy to use. Helen, glad you liked that idea. Yeah, it's fun to do something like that where you're bringing to the fore. That's kind of what I see recitals as being, that you're bringing to the fore the students' work from the last year. And so it's a celebration. I call it the spring celebration in normal times, although I called this one the comfy couch concert. But the spring celebration, because we're celebrating what students have done this year. So highlighting something like that is a really fun way to go. Nice. Okay. Lots of people sharing with each other what they did, which is great to see that chat going because you can inspire other people. So keep sharing there, guys. That's awesome. Really great. Okay. So here's my next theme that I did. And this one I did for almost all the other videos. And it was, what's the pattern? So I just grouped them by whatever I could think of. And then people had to try and guess what those videos had in common. So one of them was, a couple of them were about the titles. So one was they all had some form of transport. One was that they all had animals in the title. People guessed those ones. Another one I did, they all used the pedal. But then I did silly things too. So one was just they were all wearing long sleeves because almost everyone was wearing t-shirts since it's been reasonably warm here recently. So I grouped together a few of them that were wearing long sleeves, and that was what they had to guess. Or they had books in the background behind them in the video. You know, just silly stuff. And another one was the composers all had k sounds. Right, no one guessed that. But that wasn't really the point. It was just to keep them chatting, to try and come up with what the pattern was. And that worked really well, and I think it definitely added to the chat during the recital. And then the last theme was my favorite, and I was pretty pleased with myself for coming up with this idea, if I'm honest. So shout out goes to Alsoon for coming up with this idea, the wonderful teacher that works for me. She came up with the sort of what's the pattern, or them having things in common, which was awesome. But while I was working through that, she sparked this idea, which was then and now. And this was something that you could do at an in-person recital, but it wouldn't work nearly as well. Like, you could show the videos of them in the past and then have them play now, but you don't see the contrast as clearly as you do on a video. And so this was something special that we could do that we don't normally do. So we had, sorry, that's the wrong thing. So this is the way it worked. I had the year show, so 2016, 2015, I chose from 2 old concerts. And I had the then, which was the student playing then, and I just made that black and white, for clarity, so that you can see, oh, that's the past, all the way back in 2016, but you get the idea. It was just a silly way to show the contrast and show that was back then. So that's a 2016 performance, and then after that, we had now, and I just put a little graphic in the corner to say May 2020. And that was really special. Putting that together almost I'm not a super, I don't cry very easily, but it did make me a little bit emotional putting that together. Because you don't realize it's been 5 years, since someone, and you don't realize how different they looked then. Like, some of them, their legs are still dangling in the video, or their tiny little face, and you don't remember them like that, I know parents get this all the time, but as a teacher as well, you see them every week, and then you look back and you're like, whoa. And so several parents did comment to me that was their favourite part, that they loved that. And I even had comments from parents of newer students who said that the kiddo was inspired by that segment, and that was really the goal. So when I introduced that, I said, piano, learning to play piano, one of the magic things about it is that you have to stick at it. That's how you get better, and it will reward you, but it takes a long time, and that's part of the magic of it, is this grit and this stick-to-itiveness that we develop. And so that's why I wanted to highlight these students. So I showed I think I had 6 in that segment. I picked out 6 kids who were in 2016 or 2015 concerts and were now in this one as well. It was so fun. It was really, really special. And I think it really was a great closer to our concert. Laurie! Shucks, you're going to make me blush. She just said, Nicola, you rock. Well, yeah, it was, Helena, it was quite emotional. And like I say, I don't cry easily. I didn't tear up during it or anything. I think if that was in person, I might have. When you're, I don't know if you guys are like this. I can hold myself together pretty well on my own. But if you're with other people, it's a little bit more, it would have been even more emotional. But like I say, it wouldn't have worked in person. You would have shown a video and then had the kid play now. And it could have been fun. I don't think it would have had the same impact. And that was the whole goal with this concert, is to say, okay, a regular concert is out the window. What can we do even better here? And that's, my philosophy with online lessons in general in this whole situation. Not to put pressure on teachers to say, oh, you have to be even better than normal, but just to say, okay, what are our opportunities? What can we do even better right now? How can we make this, as good as it can be, and make the most of this situation? So, oh yeah, no, sorry. I didn't mean, Helena, I didn't mean it to sound like tearing up was a bad thing, by the way. Getting emotional is great. I was just saying there wasn't a risk of me doing that sitting on my own here. But I think if you did, doing the same thing on video, and you did tear up, more power to you. That's absolutely awesome. It just shows how much you care, and parents would love that too. They're not going to be like, oh, you weirdo, you teared up. No one would ever think that. Lindsay, using a MacBook Pro, what is the best way to create a playlist from the recital videos? It depends if you really mean playlist or if you mean cut the videos together, Lindsay. So if you mean cut the videos together, iMovie is the best completely free way. it will still take you quite a lot of time. So the really best way is to get a video editor to do it if you have a lot. And you would be surprised how cheaply you could go on upwork.com, hire a video editor, send them the videos and just say, I want this done. And they will do a much better job than any of us ever would. And they'll do it faster. And in most cases, they'll do it cheaper than if you consider your time for doing it. So 2 considerations there. But if you just mean create an actual playlist, like a YouTube playlist, you just upload them onto YouTube and create a playlist. Now, if you decide that they are supposed to be made for kids, i.e. that kids are your audience, and I covered this at the start a little bit, and my thoughts on that if you're interested in going back, but if you decide that they're made for kids, you can't have playlists of made for kids videos, so just bear that in mind. But there are other options out there in terms of video hosting. You could put them on Vimeo, for example, and you wouldn't have the same restrictions, or you could put them on Facebook, places like that. Lee, since most parents are not in the room during the online lessons, I did a series of picture slides to show the things we've done in Zoom lessons to help families realize the fun and value of it. Yes, that's awesome. And we're going to be talking more about those kinds of ideas in our video on Friday this week. So our Vibrant Music Teacher Chat on Friday, I'm going to be covering things to wrap up the year, basically, and what I'm sending out to families at this time of year, because this is when I send out re-enrollment forms and newsletters, or normally give out, but in this case, porch drop off, and the book that I'm sending to them and that kind of stuff. So that's going to be on Friday. And while I'm talking about it, Wednesday is going to be buddy lesson day, because I've gotten a lot of questions about what I'm doing for buddy lessons and partner lessons, and a lot of that will apply to if you're considering a group workshop as well. So we'll be doing that on Wednesday. Now, that's the basic rundown of how my recital worked and all the different segments that I did. It went just over an hour, which is my goal for recital, never to let it go over an hour and a half, and ideally closer to the hour mark, and that's where we were at. So we were like an hour and 10 minutes, and that's with, I had a intermission where I played some music in the middle for 5 minutes. Oh, I didn't mention that, and I should have. So 5 minutes in the middle, I had some interval music that was not the students, just to say to people, listen, I know I don't have a program or anything like that, so you're not going to know when you can go to the toilet and make tea and get more popcorn or whatever. So just to let you know, there will be an intermission, and it's going to be 5 minutes and it's then, so you can stay and listen to this wonderful music if you don't need to do anything, but you won't miss any students if you go out during that time. So that was really just a simple way of providing that break, and I think it worked well. Hopefully people got up and got tea then. And yeah. So that's how it worked. Let me know if you have any questions about any of that setup. Nice. Yeah. Oh yeah, I haven't really talked about this. I did mention that I left it up. But normally at our recitals, like the last 2 years, this has been our new tradition, the last few years, is that we have pom-poms. And so I have all these rainbow pom-poms, and so I still kept them in this one to keep a bit of that going. So I have them in as my banner here in the background, and I also had some in my hands, and I played Candy Claus. Oh, I can't hear that, but you guys probably can. My speaker was off. So I played my Candy Claus and I did the pom-poms after every group. That's the other thing about grouping the performances together. If I had to do that after every one, it just would have been so much extra time. Like, I don't mind. I'm happy to cheer people on as much as needed because they deserve it. But the extra time that would have added to an online recital would just be pretty astronomical. So, like I said, 37 performances would have been too much. I wanted to share a couple of things that I would have changed. And nothing major happened. I had no technical glitches. It all worked really well, and I'm really happy with how it went. There's definitely other ways to do it that are equally valid and awesome, and you can go with those too, but I'm happy with what I did, and I think it was the right vibe for our studio, and I've had a lot of good feedback from parents, which is great. There's 2 things I would change if I did this again. Firstly, and this Jennifer Fox said this in our interview about how she set up her recital, because she did hers a couple of weeks ago, and I did an interview with her here on the show to talk about how she ran it. And one of the things she mentioned was that she specified that the parents should record the videos in landscape. And I did not specify that, but I had already sent it out my emails before I had that interview with Jennifer. So landscape means this way, yes? Not this way. And it just didn't occur to me that parents would record it portrait. I didn't think of it. And I was wrong. They absolutely did. Plenty of them did. And if I was a bit tougher and if I had have specified that up front, maybe I would have gone back to them and said, here, listen, can you re-record in landscape? But for most of the parents who recorded in portrait, and this was a trend, was that it tended to be ones that had seemed overwhelmed in general lately with the whole situation. Totally fair, that they were. And so if parents are already feeling overwhelmed, and I kind of know that, you can get a vibe through their emails and other communications you have with them over the last several, I was going to say weeks, but months that we've been in online lessons. And so I just wasn't going to go back to them and say, actually, I didn't say this originally, but could you please do it in landscape? So I just left it portrait. I zoomed in if I could. Some I was able to zoom in and make it square with still black banners either side to make it look good. And some I was able to zoom in all the way and it still looked fine in terms of how it was cropped. But that depends on how they set it up, right? So if you're going to be cutting off half of someone's head, you just have to leave it portrait, and that's kind of awkward looking. But I mean, I'm not too perfectionist about that kind of stuff, and it wasn't a huge deal. But I should have just told them to record it landscape in the first place, and they would have done it. So that was silly on my on my side. That's what I mean. The other thing I'm less fussed about, but that was the dress code. And I did kind of say, dress up a bit. I maybe could have said it a bit more. And I maybe could have said it a bit more, or I definitely could have said it a bit more to my 2 teachers. And this isn't saying anything negative against them, but one of them, Ken, when he logged in, did say, oh, now I feel underdressed. I'm like, that's on me. I should have told him what way, I should have said, yeah, we'll dress up a bit. It was my job to make that call, and I didn't spell it out. So, and that holds true for the students as well. I could have spelled it out a bit more. Now, for our recitals in general, I don't say they have to dress up. I don't tell them they need to wear formal clothes. I know some teachers like that. I don't. I want them to wear something they feel fab in. And that could be crazy sparkly runners. Runners translates to trainers or sneakers, by the way. And so I didn't feel the need here. However, some of them were on the bit more on the casual side, and maybe I could have said, push it a little bit more on the dressing up front. A tiny bit. But if those are my two complaints with myself, then I think I did pretty well. So I'm not beating myself up about them. I think I would change those things for next time. Yeah, Lee, exactly. I had some portrait too, but it was just grateful they were willing to do their part. Oh yeah, I was absolutely not annoyed with the parents or anything like that for doing that. I was just kind of saying to myself, well, if you had said, they would have done it the right way, and they had no way of knowing which was the right way without you saying it. So could have said something, but I didn't. So there you go. Yeah. So those were the 2 really things I learned. Now I'm left, and this is a continuing conversation I'm going to be having with myself, and I think we can all be having as a community, thinking, do we want to do this again? Do we want to carry this through as a format, as one of our many performance formats, into reality, real life, right? Do we want to keep this going? Do I want to have one of these as one of our performance opportunities next year? I already have, uploading YouTube videos as one way that we do performances in certain circumstances, but not in this studio-wide way and not in a live setting like this. And it's an interesting one. Oh, thank you, Jeff. Jeff just complimented my coffee cup, and I have to reply because it's only got water and lemon in it right now, not coffee, but it was a gift from my lovely, lovely mother. So there you go. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, so we'll see. I had one parent who did say, it might even have felt more personal than it is in a big hall. And she's right, it does feel more one-to-one in a way. So maybe this is a format we carry through. I don't know. I haven't got the answer to that. I haven't, even for myself, and definitely not for you. It's something we all need to think about for ourselves. But maybe this will be one of our many performance opportunities. Maybe it'll be a third opportunity that I add to the roster next year. Maybe we'll do another one in the first semester of next year to provide a performance opportunity when it's still dodgy to do that in person. Hopefully by this time next year we'll be able to have a bigger hall-based one, but it's definitely a valid format. It definitely was a great opportunity for the students. It's definitely different, right? I'm not saying it replaces performing on a stage, but it's equally valid. And I think it's something we can all think about as we move forward. Something we can take from this. One thing we don't want to let happen after this is all over, after all the craziness, is to let the things go that were working better. And you may have heard this before, but there's a story that often comes up in pop economy type, economics type podcasts and places like that, about a 2-week period where there was construction works on the London Tube, on the Underground, the subway. I was trying to think of the American word for that. The subway had construction works in London. And so there was a 2-week period where people had to find a new route to work for these 2 or 3 subway lines. And after that happened, a good percentage of those people kept their new route, right? They had chosen to go on another line and make a connection in a different place. If you're not familiar with London, there's a lot of permutations of different ways you could travel through the tube, right? Plus the buses and all of that to get to your destination, because it's so huge and sprawling. And some of those people after that circumstance kept their new route, meaning they had been commuting, traveling the same way for years and years and years and not questioned it. And then they were forced to come up with a new way to do things. And it turned out it was better. It got them there faster. Maybe it was more pleasant in some other way, but they kept it. And so we need to be looking at this circumstance right now and saying, what are the things that we should keep? What are we being forced to do now that's actually a better way of doing things? And, it's like improvising. When we tell a student, okay, just improvise something, that's impossible. We're actually allowing them to be more creative when we say, okay, use the A minor pentascale in your right hand and play this sequence in your left hand. That has more scope for creativity because we need boundaries to come up with creative solutions. So that's what we're doing right now. And I think we should think about what we want to carry forward. Laura, is there a basic resource for those of us for whom editing a video is brand new? Like, after I receive the videos, what do I do next? Or even before, how do I request the parents send me videos? Yeah, Laura, I'm going to suggest you go back to our previous videos. So here on the channel, you'll find a tutorial video, like more of a step-by-step where I talk through 3 different ways to run an online. It's called 3 options for digital piano recitals. So if you search for that, it'll come up. There's also a previous one of these chats where I talked about the setup that I chose and stuff like that. So you can look for those resources. In terms of the actual video editing, I would encourage you to consider hiring someone to do it if you have a lot of tech stuff to learn. That's one part where you really can hire someone, and it'll be it'll be a weight off your shoulders and well worth the money. Laurie, that's an interesting question. Something to consider might be to ask yourself how much work was the online platform compared to a typical in-person recital. I have actually been asking myself that, Laurie. Was it more or less work? It was about the same. But the actual day to me was less stressful. And that wouldn't be true for every teacher, but I am fairly comfortable with tech, right? So to me, this is more predictable than people in a big hall. And the thing that was more predictable really was the student performances, because I think many of us teachers are in the audience going, oh, like, what if they mess up and then they're kicking themselves and it's all my fault, right? And so we don't have that factor. So that part is definitely less stressful, I think, Laurie. But it's an interesting question. I wish I had asked the student families to log in first. At a certain time before the grandparents. This would help for my online group. Oh yeah, I will be showing my group, because I didn't have everyone together. I had separate videos. My group recital photo is a bunch of screenshots put side by side on the front of our newsletter. So I will be showcasing that on Friday when I talk through our newsletter and everything that I'm putting in that and everything that's going with the packet to families. So that is on Friday. If you're not familiar with our schedule for these Vibrant Music Teaching chats, here it is. Mondays 2, Wednesdays 3, and Fridays at 2. That is in my time zone, which is Dublin, Ireland, same as the UK. If you're over in the US, that's your morning, as you're aware if you're watching live right now. So Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for this foreseeable future, we're going live right here. This Wednesday, we're talking about buddy and partner and group lessons and how I'm handling those online. And then on Friday, I'm talking about what I'm getting ready for the new school year and stuff that's going out to families next week-ish. My end of year studio newsletter, enrollment forms, all of that jazz. So I hope that you'll be able to join me then. It's been so fun to hang out with you all today. I hope you've enjoyed this reflection on what worked for my recital and that it's been useful to you and helped you to think about your own and what you might do or what you might do differently if you've already done it, if you might carry it forward into next year. So that's it for today, guys. I am so happy that you were able to join me. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions in the chat. Make sure to subscribe to the channel while you're here. And I hope to see you back here on Wednesday. Bye for now.